Hey everyone. So today we're taking a deep dive into something a lot of us are curious about, overcoming depression.
Oh, yeah. It's a tough one.
It is, and you actually sent over a podcast episode all about it called How to Overcome Depression, Top 20 Tips
Right.
from Mindset Matters. So we're going to break it down and see what we can learn from it.
Awesome.
So it starts off by talking about how important it is to actually seek professional help, like from a therapist or counselor.
Yeah, they can be really helpful.
They can. And, it makes me think about like having a guide on a challenging hike.
Oh, yeah, that's a good analogy.
Like you wouldn't want to do it alone, would you?
Not at all.
And podcast also talks about how important it is to talk to someone you trust,
Right.
like a friend or family member, maybe even a support group.
Definitely. It can really help to share what you're going through.
Absolutely. And, it's like they say, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Exactly.
So the podcast goes on to give some practical tips too, like setting small, achievable goals, which I'm kind of curious about. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a great idea because when you're feeling depressed, even small tasks can feel really overwhelming.
Right.
So by breaking things down into smaller steps, it makes it easier to get started. And, you can start building momentum.
It's like that first step out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Once you get going, it's a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
So the podcast also talks about how important the mind-body connection is.
Oh, definitely.
And it emphasizes things like physical activity, nutrition, and sleep.
Yeah, all of those things play a role.
And they actually specifically mention omega-3 fatty acids,
Oh, yeah.
like in fatty fish and walnuts and flax seeds.
Right, like brain food.
Yeah. And they can actually help improve your mood.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So that's something to keep in mind.
For sure.
And they also recommend getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night.
That's so important.
It can really make a difference.
Oh, absolutely.
So speaking of, kind of improving your performance,
Yeah.
the podcast talks about building a mental toolkit.
Okay.
And it includes things like mindfulness and meditation.
Oh, right.
And there are apps out there that can help with that, like Headspace or Calm.
I love those apps.
And then they talk about stress management techniques like deep breathing exercises.
All great tools.
Yeah, so it's kind of like having a first aid kit for your mind.
I like that analogy.
So one tip that I think a lot of people will appreciate is about limiting social media.
Oh, yeah.
Because, in this day and age, it's easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to others.
It's true.
And that can really fuel negative feelings.
Definitely. It's important to be mindful of what you're consuming online.
Absolutely. And, it's not just about what we're consuming online, but also about who we're surrounding ourselves with.
Right. The people and environments we're exposed to.
Yeah, because have you ever noticed how certain people or situations can just drain your energy?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like they're energy vampires?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you need to set boundaries or even distance yourself from those influences.
It's tough, but it's important to prioritize your own well-being.
Absolutely. It's like pruning a garden.
That's a great way to put it.
You have to get rid of the weeds to let the healthy plants grow.
So the podcast also talks about the power of creative outlets, whether it's painting, writing music, or anything that lets you express yourself.
Right.
And what's interesting is that they say it's not about being good at it.
No, it's about the process.
It's about the process and letting yourself just play and explore.
Exactly.
And one of the tips that really stood out to me was spending time in nature.
Oh, yeah. Nature is amazing.
It's like hitting the reset button.
It can be so calming and restorative.
Now, one tip that I think some people might struggle with is the idea of helping others.
Okay.
It might seem counterintuitive, but the podcast suggests that acts of kindness can actually help you feel better.
I've heard that before.
It's like a win-win.
It is.
You're helping someone else and boosting your own mood.
What are some examples of small acts of kindness that you think people could do?
Well, even something as simple as holding the door open for someone.
Right.
Or offering a genuine compliment.
We're sending a thoughtful text message.
Exactly. It's about those little moments of connection.
I love that.
And speaking of connection, the podcast also talks about therapy modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT.
Oh, yeah. CBT is a great tool.
It is. And they use this really interesting analogy to explain it.
What's that?
They say that negative thoughts are like bad software.
Okay.
And CBT helps you reprogram your thinking for a healthier mindset.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah, so it's like learning a new language for your thoughts.
I love that.
So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I think it's important to remember that overcoming depression is a journey, not a destination.
It's a process.
It is, and it takes time and patience and self-compassion. And, there will be ups and downs.
Of course.
It's like climbing a mountain.
You can't expect to reach the summit in one go.
Exactly. It's about taking it one step at a time.
And celebrating those small victories along the way.
And remembering that you're not alone on this journey.
That's so important.
There are resources available.
Yeah.
From therapists and support groups to online communities and helpful books.
It's about reaching out and finding what works for you.
So that's a great point to pause on.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground already, and we'll continue exploring these tips and strategies in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned. And we're back for part 2 of our deep dive into these 20 tips for overcoming depression.
Yeah, this podcast is really packed with useful information.
It is, and, it's a good reminder that it's a journey, not a race.
Definitely no need to rush.
Take your time.
Right.
So one of the tips that really resonated with me was the idea of practicing gratitude.
Oh, yeah, I love that one.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
The podcast suggests taking a few minutes each day to write down 3 things you're grateful for. Have you ever tried that?
I have. It's amazing how much can shift your perspective.
It can.
Even when you're feeling down, you can always find something to be grateful for.
It's true. It's like training your brain to focus on the positive.
Right.
Instead of dwelling on the negative.
And it's something anyone can do.
It is. It's a simple but powerful practice.
Absolutely.
So the podcast also talks about how healing isn't linear.
Yeah.
Some days will be better than others.
It's true.
And that's okay.
It's like the weather.
Okay.
You can't expect sunshine every day.
Right.
There will be storms.
But the storms will pass.
Exactly.
Another important point is about avoiding substance use.
Yeah.
It might be tempting to self-medicate with alcohol or drugs.
It might seem like a quick fix.
But it can actually make things worse in the long run.
It can. It really can. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone.
Oh, that's a good one.
It doesn't actually address the underlying issue.
So the podcast emphasizes the importance of learning stress management techniques.
Right.
Like deep breathing exercises and journaling.
Yeah, those are great.
They are. Deep breathing can really calm you down.
It can.
And journaling can help you process your emotions.
And it's a good way to track your progress over time.
It's like having a personal therapist in a notebook.
I like that.
And of course, we can't forget about sleep.
Oh, yeah. Sleep is so important.
The podcast recommends aiming for 7 to 9 hours each night.
It's crucial for both our physical and mental health.
Yes. When we don't get enough sleep, everything suffers.
It's true.
Our mood, our energy levels, our ability to focus.
It's like trying to run a marathon on an empty stomach.
You're not going to get very far.
Not at all.
So one thing that I think is really helpful is that the podcast encourages listeners to start small.
Yeah.
You don't have to do everything at once.
Pick 1 or 2 tips that resonate with you and focus on those.
It's about building momentum.
And not getting overwhelmed.
Right. It's like learning to play an instrument.
Okay.
You wouldn't expect to master it overnight.
No, you have to practice.
And be patient.
And
most importantly, remember that you're not alone in this. There are so many people who have struggled with depression and come out stronger on the other side.
It's true.
And there are resources available to support you.
Absolutely.
Whether it's therapy support groups, online communities, or helpful books.
There's help out there if you need it.
So don't be afraid to reach out.
Good advice.
And remember, every step you take towards healing is a victory.
It is.
No matter how small.
Celebrate those small wins.
They all add up.
They do.
So that's a great point to transition into our final part of this deep dive.
Okay.
We'll recap the key takeaways and leave you with some empowering thoughts to carry with you on your journey.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to our final part. Wow, it's been amazing exploring these 20 tips for overcoming depression with you.
Yeah, it's really given us a lot to think about.
It has. It just shows how there's no one right way to heal.
Exactly. Everyone's journey is unique.
So true.
Yeah.
So let's recap some of the key takeaways that we've talked about today. First and foremost, remember how crucial it is to seek professional help.
Yeah, a therapist can provide so much guidance and support.
They can, and they can help create a plan that's tailored to your individual needs.
It's like having a map and a compass when you're navigating unfamiliar territory.
Perfect analogy. And don't forget about the importance of opening up to someone you trust.
Whether it's a friend, family member, or a support group.
It really helps to share your burdens.
It does. Sometimes just saying things out loud can make them feel less heavy.
Now, we also talked about the mind-body connection.
Oh, yeah.
Taking care of your physical health through exercise, nutrition, and sleep.
It's all connected.
It is.
But
If you're not taking care of your body, your mind won't be able to function at its best.
it's like trying to run a car without any fuel.
It's not going to go anywhere.
And we talked about building that mental toolkit.
Yes, with things like mindfulness meditation and stress management techniques.
Right. Those are essential for maintaining mental well-being.
And remember those small victories?
Oh.
Those little wins that can help build momentum.
Like making your bed or taking a short walk.
Exactly. Those things might seem small, but they can make a big difference.
They can. And most importantly, remember that depression is temporary.
It is.
It might not feel like it at times, but it will pass.
With effort and the right support, you can overcome it.
And even if you only implement a few of these tips, you're still moving in the right direction.
That's so true. You have the power to shape your own mental well-being.
And remember, there's no shame in asking for help.
Absolutely. And before we go, I wanted to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about overcoming depression, but what if we went even further?
What do you mean?
What if instead of just overcoming it, we focused on creating a life where it doesn't have a chance to take root in the first place?
That's an interesting idea.
What habits, routines, or mindset shifts could you embrace to build resilient and cultivate lasting mental well-being?
That's something for everyone to think about.
It is. It's about being proactive and taking charge of your mental health.
And remember, every journey starts with a single step.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into overcoming depression.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it helpful and encouraging.
And remember, you're not alone.
There's always hope, and there's always help available.
Take care, everyone.
Until next time.